also say things like, I have great confidence that as you're getting older, this is going to become easier for you. All right, so label it with confidence. Give specific feedback to your child. Not just you did that really well, but I like the way you persisted. I like the way you took that difficult task apart and did it step by step. I like the way you checked your work. I like the way you threw out some new ideas and chose the best ideas. The difference between, yeah, that was nice, and what was really nice about that. We want kids to be in the risk tolerance zone. If a risk is safe, go for it. Okay? Say yes to opportunity. Say yes to trying, even if you're out of your comfort zone. Our oldest son, the little guy I told you about, when he was in high school, his senior year, he decided to go out for tennis. Now, he's almost as coordinated as I am, okay? And he had played a number of sports reasonably well, but he'd never played tennis. And I looked at him and said, tennis in your senior year? And he said, hey, no risk. I'm in my no-risk zone, okay? You know, what's going to happen? You're going to kick him off the team? He's a senior. He'll be in college next year. This is also the child who had played piano and French horn and all kinds of stuff in high school, decided to try out for the college choir. He had sung in church. I knew he could sing, hold a tune, knew a lot about music, but he'd never sung. Goes into his audition at Carthage College in front of the entire music faculty, and they said, have you ever studied voice? And he said, only in utero. They let him in the choir. Okay, he took a risk, but in a safe zone. He had lots of other things planned if he didn't make the choir. All right, we want our kids to take safe risks. We want our kids to understand that they have a malleable mind. Okay, that their mind is always changing if they're willing to do the work, if they have the grit. Okay, talked about this earlier. Common misconceptions bright kids have. If it's easy, I'm smart. And if it's difficult, then I'm what? Stupid, right? Smart to stupid in less than 10 seconds, right? Okay? If it's hard, I'll call it stupid. I'll cry, throw it in the wastebasket. The bottom one is the worst one. And I know grown-ups who are at this stage in their life. If it's hard, I won't attempt it. Because it's safer to say, well, I didn't try, than to say I couldn't. Okay, we all have places in our lives where we won't go because we're afraid. All right. So, the bad news. If gifted kids aren't challenged sufficiently early on, they can learn to be lazy learners. I like to think of it this way. They found Easy Street and they like it there. Okay? Pattern often leads to underachievement syndrome as the difficulty of school increases. Usually it starts around 3rd grade. And if not by 3rd grade, it starts around 4th grade. All right? If we can get them challenged early on, especially using some differentiation strategies, they can be challenged in the regular classroom so this pattern doesn't emerge. It's easier to prevent this than to cure it. I always say it's easier to feed it than resurrect it in the end. Okay, here's the kind of things you might hear teachers say. I could compact your child. That does not mean I'm going to put them in a machine, make them littler. What it means is they're going to take their curriculum and they're going to either telescope it, teach it faster, or teach it in an abbreviated fashion, or they're going to simply let your child out of things that your child already knows. Let me give you an example. Many schools use like Monday mornings pre-test and spelling, okay? Good teachers want to know, do kids know how to spell these words already? Because if kids know how to spell most of the words on the spelling test, why do they have to spend the whole week alphabetizing them, defining them, using them in a sentence, using them in a story? Let them out of that to buy some time for what they want to learn and what is part of their learning. So compacting is letting kids out of stuff. Second strategy, flexible grouping. Flexible grouping, I always describe like a train. And anybody here ever been to Japan? Okay, or heard about the bullet train? Okay, bullet train starts, stops, Does anybody get on or off on a bullet train? No, right? That's tracking in schools, where kids start with a group of kids, and they go all the way through school with that same group of kids. Nobody gets on, nobody gets off. Okay? That's tracking. And in America, we've gotten a bad name for that, because tracking sometimes sorts kids by ethnicity, by socioeconomic status. We've got a bad name for that. I think flexible grouping is more like the milk train of Europe. Anybody ever been on a milk train? Okay, they used to deliver milk. They don't do that anymore. But on the milk train, the train starts here, stops along the way. Some people get on and off. They used to put milk on the train there too. Goes to the next stop. Some people get on and off, and so on and so on. So the people who started here may or may not be some of the same people at the end of the journey. That's what flexible grouping is like. We stop, we mix kids up. Every couple of weeks we look at kids and say, are we still meeting that child's needs? Do we need to add some children to this group? Are there some children that maybe don't need this group anymore? We teach for a while, we stop, we do it again, and so on. Okay? Flexible grouping. So if anyone says that grouping kids is illegal or immoral, I think they've got tracking and flexible grouping mixed up. Independent projects or contracts. Kids can decide when they buy time from compacting, what is it they'd like to do with that time? Would they like to learn about Braille? Would they like to have a pen pal? Would they like to explore something on the internet in a safe zone, obviously? There are a lot of cool kid programs that make sure that the sites are safe. Would they like to present something to their class? Would they like to do a web quest? These are all things that kids can do with the time that they've bought for their interests. The next two, interest and learning centers. These are things that teachers will set up in a classroom. They are most typically seen in primary classes. Places where kids go during the learning time to learn specific things. Interest centers are based on the interest of children. Maybe you've got a class that wants to learn about brain this year. Learning centers are built around the teacher's curriculum. What is she responsible to teach that year in her classroom? Tiered assignments. I work with teachers a lot. I teach a lot of graduate classes. And this is one of the hardest things for teachers to do. A tiered assignment is kind of like a ladder. Think of 3 rungs. Some teachers like to have like 5 rungs. I tell them that's a little too hard when you're first learning. But they like them to think of their curriculum in 3 tiers. The middle tier is the just right curriculum for most kids. All right, whatever it is you're teaching, the just right curriculum. The lower rung or lower tier is for kids who are struggling, and we're going to have to scaffold that learning so that kids can learn the same things as the kids on the middle tier. The upper tier, the stretch tier, is for some of our gifted learners. This is extension curriculum. Now we can teach a lot of the same curriculum with either scaffolding for struggling learners or stretching our upper end learners. And that's a tiered assignment. Easy to talk about, difficult to write. And finally, my favorite of all, good questioning. Just a quick primer for parents in the audience. Lots of times we ask what I call closed questions or skinny questions, questions that have one answer. Not my favorite graphic here. Kid once told me, I know why it's called a funnel. You have a lot of fun with it, Mrs. Drummer. When we ask closed-end questions, we'll ask a question that requires one answer that makes sense and you can prove it. Like, who is the main character in the story? Where did the story take place? What happened? All right? On the other hand, we want to ask more questions that are high-level questions. In goes a question with lots of possible answers. All right? For example, if you were the main character in the story, would you have done what that character did? Why or why not? Decide and defend. All right? Did the sequence of events in this story satisfy you? If so, tell me why. If not, tell me what you would have done differently. My job for you as parents is to try and ask more of these kind of questions.